Welcome back then guys to this live stream. It is now time for the main event, the 45 lap German Grand Prix. And if you didn't see what happened in qualifying yesterday, it was a very interesting qualifying session, must be said, with Fernando Alonso taking pole position, but then the two Etihads being split by two guys you wouldn't have even expected to have be near them, of course. Max Verstappen, of course, continuing his qualifying run, but Daniel Ricciardo also seeming to have some improvement in the GRM to get up into third place. A really good qualifying session for him, and hopefully we'll be in for a very interesting German Grand Prix. Well, before we start then guys, let's mute this, turn this up a little, and let's have a look at the grid for the German Grand Prix. Here we go then. So on pole position, it is Fernando Alonso with Max Verstappen in second. Daniel Ricciardo lines up in third with Lewis Hamilton in fourth. Nico Hülkenberg starts in fifth with Kimi Räikkönen in sixth position. Antonio Giovinazzi starts in seventh with the one-off Jenson Button starting in eighth in place of Sergio Pérez. Esteban Ocon is in ninth with Romain Grosjean in 10th. Brendon Hartley is in 11th with Valtteri Bottas continuing to struggle in 12th position. Stoffel Vandoorne is 13th with Jean-Eric Vergne in 14th. Carlos Sainz Jr. is in 15th with Kevin Magnussen still struggling in qualifying in 16th. Ed Jones is 17th with teammate Scott Dixon in 18th. Then it's four drivers with quali ban. Sebastian Vettel 19th with Felipe Massa in 20th. And on the back row of the grid is Pascal Wehrlein and Charles Leclerc. And that is the grid for the German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. So there is the grid then guys for the German Grand Prix. And the weather of course looking bright and sunny, so leave your predictions. But without further ado, let's get to the 45 lap German Grand Prix. So, here we are then on the grid then. It's Alonso on the right of your screens, Verstappen on the left. Who's going to get the lead into turn 1 as we wait for the 5 red lights to go off to signify the start of the German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. 1 light is on, 2 lights are on, 3 lights are on, 4 lights are on, 5 lights are on. And it is go here at Hockenheim. It seems to be a good start for Max Verstappen, who seems to get a better start than Alonso. And Verstappen leads in Germany. Verstappen jumps Alonso at the start. Has everybody got through the first corner okay? A good start from Button to get up to 6th place. Has everybody got through okay? Yes, well, there's a yellow flag somewhere. And no, Felipe Massa has gone off at turn 1. Looks like Massa's been punted off at the exit of turn 1. Let's see what on earth happened to Massa then at the start. So let's see from the back. As you can see, Vettel gets a good start but then gets cut off by the Mars Grand Prix cars. Massa trying to slot in behind Vettel. Let's see who clipped him from the back as they go to turn 1. He's already been clipped at this point, I think, by either Wehrlein or Leclerc, I would think. So either Wehrlein or Leclerc has clipped the back of Massa going into turn 1 there. So let's see who it was as those guys try and make it into traffic. Let's see. We'll look at Pascal Wehrlein's perspective to see if it was him. And because I think he got a good look in anyway. He also got a little bit blocked off by the Mars Grand Prix cars, just like Vettel. Going into turn 1, let's see. Going into the corner. And no, it just looked like Massa was just being a bit clumsy. And Vettel's so lucky he didn't get collected there by Massa. And, well, it just looks similar to what Jack Aitken did yesterday. Just a clumsy move from Felipe Massa to do that. And as a result, has possibly beached himself in the ground. But Verstappen leads, but Alonso's not leaving it lying down. Alonso wants to grab the lead back as Hamilton tries to have a look at Ricciardo for third. Danny inside he goes, but Ricciardo covers him off. Alonso, Danny inside of Verstappen, but Verstappen covers him off into the first chicane. Hülkenberg close to that scrap for third place as everybody gets through okay into that first chicane. Now they're on the track as it looks like Button's lost a bit of ground. Well, no, in fact that's wrong. That was somebody else. Button getting up the field quite nicely as we head into the second chicane. This is where the pile-up happened last season. Let's see if everybody can keep it clean this time as Alonso tries to dive it down the inside, but Verstappen defending his line into that second chicane. Let's see, can everybody get through okay? No, Button's had a little bit of contact with Räikkönen into that chicane there, but no sort of pile up at the moment. Let's see, can everybody else keep it through there? And yes, everybody gets through okay. Let's see that little bump between Räikkönen and Button in towards that second chicane. So as you can see, Räikkönen having a look at Button into the chicane, and then no, in fact it was actually Giovinazzi, I think that was. Giovinazzi goes for it, and then Räikkönen clips the back of him, so Giovinazzi getting up into into 6th place, but Räikkönen clipping the side there of Jenson Button as Massa's out. He's beached it in the gravel. Felipe Massa out of the race, and we're down to 21 runners already in this Grand Prix. Let's see it from Räikkönen's perspective as they go into the second chicane. As you can see, Giovinazzi gets through, then so does Räikkönen. And, well, it just looked like Button wasn't expecting Räikkönen to be there, so it will be investigated after the race, but we'll wait and see if the stewards think it was somebody's fault or they'll deem it a racing incident. I'm not 100% sure, but Button has only dropped 1 place as a result. So just a little bit of contact there, then it must be said. But meantime, Hamilton down the inside of Ricciardo. Would he get the podium place off his future teammate? No, Ricciardo sticking in there. Hamilton trying to hang it around the outside out of that bus stop. Hülkenberg trying to get a full advantage as Giovinazzi's now in that scrap. Giovinazzi trying to have a look. Hülkenberg covered him off as now Hülkenberg looks to the inside of Hamilton as it looks like Ricciardo's blocked him off a little bit there into the right-hander. Will Hülkenberg get the place of Hamilton? And yes, he can. Up into 4th place goes Nico Hülkenberg. Gets the move done on Lewis Hamilton. And Hamilton down to 5th at the start, at the end, towards the end of lap 1 on the race as Alonso starts to lose some time, it seems, to Max Verstappen. Verstappen, obviously, of course, was very strong here last season, and it seems to have continued as his teammates out for the 2nd race in a row. Esteban Ocon is out of the race. What's happened to the Martini? And whereabouts is he? There he is. Oh, he's in the middle of some carnage. And oh, dearie me. 3 cars have gone off into the right-hander. I wonder if that was a similar incident to what we saw in GP3 yesterday. As Vern, and that's one of the El Dorados as well, has got himself involved. It's Bottas. Bottas has he damaged the wheel? Well, Vern has, but what about Bottas? 3 cars have piled up on each other around that right-hander. It was Vern, Bottas and Ocon that got itself involved in that melee. They were 3 wide going into the stadium section, and it was obviously not going to quite work out. As you can see, Vern turns in into the side of Ocon, and that just pretty much caused the chain reaction from there, really. Luckily, nobody rolled over from that point. And Bottas has also lost the wheel, so Valtteri Bottas is out of the race. All 3 cars then out of the race at that corner, and we're down to 18 runners now in this Grand Prix. And, well, a huge accident down at the right-hander. And, well, that will be investigated after the race, that's for sure. 3 cars out of the race. 3 wide into that corner was never going to work either way. But there we are. Meantime now then, as you can see, end of lap 1 of the race, Verstappen leads, Alonso 2nd, Ricciardo 3rd, Hülkenberg 4th, Hamilton in 5th with Giovinazzi 6th, Räikkönen in 7th, and Button rounding out the top 8 at this stage. Räikkönen all over the backside of Giovinazzi at this stage of the race. Meantime, Hülkenberg looking to the inside of Ricciardo. Will he get the move done on the Aussie as confirmation that somebody is out of the race? And I think that was one of the cars that got piled up down at the right-hander. Yeah, Ocon, that's just said. Just confirmation that he was out of the race as they come down towards the chicane. Will Hülkenberg try and dive it down the inside of Ricciardo? Or this is allowing the top 2 to break away from the rest of the field at this stage now then. Hamilton getting held up a treat down through these corners now then as Hülkenberg tries to get a run on Ricciardo in towards the second chicane. He's going to look to the outside. Hamilton looking to try and take advantage, trying to get alongside Hülkenberg into the second chicane. Ricciardo looks so covered off Hülkenberg, but Hülkenberg covers off Hamilton, covers the inside to stop the Brit from making an attack, but Hamilton dives it down the inside of Hülkenberg into the second chicane. A beautiful pass from the championship leader, and up into 4th place goes Lewis Hamilton. Pretty much caught Hülkenberg unawares into that corner. As meantime, where's Räikkönen? Räikkönen has gone somewhere. Räikkönen, has he gone off? Räikkönen's gone off at the chicane. Was there contact between him and Button? Or Giovinazzi, I should say, and we caught onto it last minute. So, I wonder if it, because it didn't look like the Giovinazzi had made some sort of sharp move there. So I wonder if it was a clumsy bit of contact from Kimi Räikkönen. And oh, did you see that? The Mars Grand Prix nearly came to blows with the Suomi, and it caught on last minute. So we'll never know what actually caused it, whether Räikkönen just went straight on or not. But Räikkönen has dropped himself down the field and into the points now. Then I'm trying to work out would be, I think, Brendon Hartley in the points now. So Räikkönen down to last place in 18th. And outside the points he goes. So some carnage on the first fuel laps. And it is Hartley who's into the points. As Hülkenberg still keeping with Hamilton. And all that's allowing Ricciardo to break away from the pair of them. At this stage, Brendon now down the inside of Grosjean. And he takes 9th from Stoffel Vandoorne. From Romain Grosjean. Vandoorne up into 9th place. As now Vandoorne tries to chase down Hartley. Meantime, Button on the inside of Giovinazzi. And Button trying to find a way through on Antonio Giovinazzi's Bud Light line. Down the inside into the stadium section. But Giovinazzi just able to hang it around the outside to keep hold of 6th place for the moment in this race. And, well, That's that really as far as it goes, as Alonso rounds the second to last corner and Verstappen getting away. Let's check the fuel loads very quickly. 14.7, 18.7, 20.7, 22.7, 18.7, 26.7, 22.7, 22.7, 13.7, 23.7, 13.7, 20.7, 13.7, 18.7, 25.7, 19.8, 25.7, 19.7, and they are the fuel loads the other four we never knew about. But remember, fuel is quite critical around here, let's not forget. It's similar to Sakir in a way, in that people can leave it quite tight in terms of the fuel towards the end of the race, so we'll have to bear in mind on that, as Verstappen still leading comfortably in front of Alonso. Verstappen in a position he hasn't been at for a while since Martini had that illegal car, but their car is now fully legal, and it seems this track more suited to him than what it has to Ocon so far this weekend. And of course Ocon retiring from that crash with Vernon Bottas. That incident, of course, being investigated after the race, as Hamilton now then trying to chase down Ricciardo as he's starting to get away from Hülkenberg in the EMR. So he looks to try and chase down Ricciardo again for that final podium place. As Giovinazzi now then in 6th place, looking quite lonely. Button losing time to him now then at this stage. Meantime now Brendon down the inside of Hartley. Will he grab the final points place of the Kiwi now then, as they go into the bus stop chicane? Down the inside goes Brendon, and he gets the place. Brendon into the points, and up into 8th place goes the Belgian. So Brendon up into the points. Meantime, Vettel on the comeback. He's up to 11th place after his quali ban. Wehrlein, I think he's also doing well as well, wherever he is. Wehrlein's 14th, getting up behind Sainz. Leclerc 15th at this stage, as now Vettel's onto the back of the battling Grosjean and Hartley, as Brendon starts to get away from Hartley at this stage of the Grand Prix, as Wehrlein's onto the back of Sainz and Magnussen, who seem to battle it out for 12th place in this Grand Prix. So that's that really as far as they're concerned. Hamilton now then really trying to get on the prowl of Daniel Ricciardo, as they will now approach the first corner on the track. And will Ricciardo get the move done on the Aussie as they sprint their way around turn 1, using a lot of tarmac on the left hand side, as Verstappen sets the fastest lap of the race. But it looks like Alonso started to close him in a little bit. 2.3 seconds of the gap. That looks a little bit closer than what it has done before. So Alonso, I don't know if Verstappen might have gone wide a little bit there, because Alonso is now a tad bit closer to him than what he has been before. So I don't know if Verstappen went a little bit wide into a corner. I'm not 100% sure on that. Meantime, here's the battle for ninth. Grosjean still stuck behind Hartley, unable to make the move into the chicane. Nor will Vettel on Grosjean, as they now come around the first chicane on the track now then. Out of the corner we go. Brendon trying to chase down Button for P7 if he can, as they go up towards the second chicane. Grosjean in the selection of Hartley. He's going to look to the outside. Vettel looking to try and take advantage as well. Grosjean covering him off. Will Grosjean try to dive down into the chicane? He's going to look to the inside of Hartley. Will he pull this one off into the chicane? And he does so. Up into 9th place goes Romain Grosjean, getting the move done on Hartley. As meantime, Magnussen's been pushed off a little bit there by Carlos Sainz, and he's gone for a spin. Magnussen spins at the chicane where Räikkönen went off a little earlier. Räikkönen making a charge through the field. Let's see it from his perspective. Let's see if Sainz was the culprit in that contact. As let's see then, so he gets the run on Carlos Sainz as he tries to get 12th from him now then. Wehrlein also looking for a move as well. So Magnussen goes for the dive into the chicane, and it was very clumsy there from Magnussen. And wow, and then he goes for the spin, so no contact involved. It was just Magnussen just couldn't get on the brakes in time, and has effectively cost himself that position. So Magnussen will drop down to the back. Suomi having a bad weekend so far, it must be said. But as Magnussen beats the car, no, he's getting the car moving, but he needs to get it quickly, otherwise that car will get beached in onto the gravel. Magnussen gets it going again, but drops down to 18th and last. So that's that for him really. His meantime now then, Ricciardo still doing a good job in 3rd, but Hamilton starting to close him in again, as is Hülkenberg. So some battling going on there. It has left Vettel up into 10th. In fact, unseen by the cameras, Vettel's up to 10th. He's past Hartley and must have been down at the bus stop. So Vettel up into 10th place. He gets into the top 10 in this race. As oh, there's been one seeing a yellow flag. That's Button who's gone off, and Vettel has pretty much, I don't know if there's some oil down there, because 2 cars have gone off at the hairpin. Vettel and Button have gone off at the hairpin. Let's see how Button went off there. Was it a similar thing to what Vettel did going into the hairpin? Let's have a look into the hairpin, and yeah, very similar, but he loses the back end going into there. He doesn't understeer off, and you're going to see in a little bit Vettel understeer off into that corner. Both of them lucky they don't sustain some damage, and well, a bit of a coincidence that somebody joins Button onto the grass. So Button has cost himself a chance of points here today, as has potentially Vettel, or maybe not. There could still be a comeback on the hands, as Vettel, being the gentleman that he is, letting Button go. And but Button gets himself into a spin, so Vettel goes instead. And Button has got to wait for Magnussen now, who goes by. So Button now down to the back of the pack. And so much chaos in this race, as we kind of expected from the last 2 seasons that we've been here to Hockenheim. As Verstappen now starting to get away now from Alonso. As Hülkenberg's up to 4th, he passes Hamilton. Up into 4th place goes Hülkenberg. He must have got him down at turn 1. So Hülkenberg up into P4, getting by on the championship leader, Lewis Hamilton. So Hülkenberg gains the place from Lewis Hamilton, as it will now approach the first chicane on the track. And so that's that really as far as they're concerned. So Hülkenberg getting a place there from Lewis Hamilton. As meantime, up into 7th place goes Stoffel Vandoorne. He's passed Romain Grosjean, of course, and he's got up into 7th place. As now Sainz wants to chase down Hartley, as he's now into the top 10. And Vettel having to do the chasing again, same with Button and Magnussen. There are the top 2, as mentioned, breaking away from the rest of the pack. There is Ricciardo, there is Hülkenberg and Hamilton. Again, this allows Ricciardo to get away while these 2 scrap it out for 4th place. This is what they did at Silverstone 2 races ago. Hamilton in the slipstream of Hülkenberg. Will he try and dive it down the inside into the bus stop chicane? We'll wait and see now then. Up towards the bus stop we go, as they round the left, right and left-hander on the track. Hamilton trying everything he can to close in onto Hülkenberg at this stage, as they will now go up towards the right-hander. And Hamilton now then really trying everything to get hold of Vettel in this race as they go around. Sorry, Hülkenberg, not Vettel. Vettel's just trying to make his way out through the field, isn't he? Coming out of that right-hander. Hülkenberg currently 4th, as Hamilton tries to continue to pile the pressure on him at this stage. As Grosjean still keeping Vandoorne honest. Hartley trying to close in onto Grosjean. Everybody's been settled down. Räikkönen has gained up a few places now. He's up to 12th after what happened to him a little bit earlier on. So that's that for him really. Vettel trying to catch back up to Jones if he can. So that's that for him really. Here's Alonso, who's now 2.1 seconds back from Max Verstappen. As Hamilton again still trying to get hold of Hülkenberg, but he's a little bit too far back at this stage to challenge. In terms of the first round of stops, I don't know if anybody's doing the 1 stop. Maybe I think everybody might try and do the 1 stop in this race. I don't know, but I would expect the pit stops to come around about. Let's think about that. Around about lap number 15 to 22. So that's when we'll probably see it, and it probably will be a 1-stop race for all of these guys. But of course, they obviously have the fuel to worry about towards the end. Some people will try and risk it, and sometimes it ultimately fails, like we saw with Joseph Newgarden a couple of seasons ago. I don't know if anybody else did that last season. Can't 100% remember, but that's that as far as I know. So just keep that in mind as Verstappen negotiates out of the bus stop now then. And towards the right-hander he will go. Here is Daniel Ricciardo doing a good job in 3rd place as he comes out of that bus stop. Meantime, Hamilton trying everything he can to get hold of Hülkenberg in this race as they go down this long straight now then towards the right-hander, which takes them onto the stadium section. Up towards the right-hander we go as Hamilton just gets the car into the corner before approaching the left-handed hairpin. And Hamilton doing whatever he can to get Hülkenberg in this race as they round these final few turns. Verstappen has started lap 7 now at 45 in this Grand Prix, so we now have specifically 39 laps remaining in this German Grand Prix, and we're still yet to get to the pit stop stages of the race. And meantime now then, Hamilton trying everything he can to get hold of Hülkenberg in this race as they now come up towards the first corner. Hamilton now then trying to close the gap. What is the gap between Hülkenberg and Ricciardo? 1.2 seconds is the gap between Ricciardo and Hülkenberg. Hamilton still not within slipstream range of Nico at this stage, as he's currently languishing in 5th place at this stage of the race. As they will now approach the first chicane. Meantime now then, Sainz might be coming under pressure soon from Pascal Wehrlein. Räikkönen 12th trying to close in onto Wehrlein at the same time. Vettel making a move. He's already up to 15th, and now he's on the back of the of Ed Jones in the very underpowered Porsche engined Mars Grand Prix car. As now Vettel will try and get him onto this straight if he can. Up towards the first chicane on the track we go, and not close enough to get him that time around, but might have a shot at him down that second straight. Out of the corner now then towards the straight we go as Vettel looks to the inside of Ed Jones and didn't even need to wait for the corner. Vettel up into 14th place, and so Vettel up to 14th. He'll now try and chase down Charles Leclerc. if he can now then, as everybody seems to separate themselves out just a little bit in this race, it must be said. So Verstappen continues to lead the race at the moment, still looking for his first victory of his career, his first legit victory, let's put it that way, and Martini's first legit victory, as they now come around the final 2 turns. Whether he'll be able to do it this weekend, though, we don't know, of course. We don't know if the Etihad of Alonso is hiding something underneath that car, as Verstappen, in fact, sets another fastest lap. So Verstappen on a flyer at this stage. He's obviously got a little bit less fuel than what Alonso has. I think around about 4 litres less. So he is able to push a little bit more than what Fernando is. Fernando running a little bit heavier in that Etihad. As Ricciardo comes out of turn 1. And Hülkenberg is still starting to close him back in now, because the gap's now down to 1 second. So Hülkenberg gains another tenth. Gains 2 tenths out of Ricciardo's lead in front. And pulls away a little bit more from Hamilton, who's 0.6 seconds back. And still not within slipstream range at this stage is Lewis Hamilton. As now they will approach the first chicane on the track through the right, left, and right-hander. We will go. Hamilton now then at this stage, if it stays like this, will Alonso up in second. At this stage, Alonso will cut the gap between himself and Hamilton in the championship down to 19 points. That's how it will currently stand if they remain in second and fifth respectively by the end of the race. But Hamilton trying to get a little bit more on his plate if he can. Giovinazzi a little bit further back from this battle for third at the moment in this race, as Hamilton comes out of that second chicane before he heads down towards the bus stop. As Brendon looks to try and close up onto Giovinazzi. So far he finds himself in a Bud Light Lime sandwich, with Giovinazzi 6th and Grosjean in 8th place at the moment. Meantime now then, unseen by the cameras, Wehrlein is up to 10th. He's got the move done on Sainz, so up into P10 goes Pascal Wehrlein, and now finds himself into the top 10. Now Wehrlein will try and close up onto Hartley if he can in front in the monster car. So now in towards that first chicane we will go on the track, and so that's that really as far as they're concerned, as Vettel will try and close in onto Leclerc for 13th. He's now left Jones for dust. As meantime, Magnussen has got the place off Dixon, so Magnussen up to 16th place as Button is starting to close up to make his fight back through the field. And Verstappen now then on lap 9 of 45. He's just started that lap now then, so including this lap, we now have, trying to remember off the top of my head, 37 laps to go in this German Grand Prix, as Verstappen continues to lead the way at this stage as he will approach the first chicane. Meantime, Hülkenberg has got the gap down to 0.9 seconds, so he's taken another 10th out of Ricciardo's lead. Hamilton slowly but surely starting to drop back now from Hülkenberg, and probably because Hülkenberg is pretty much getting a taste of Ricciardo's slipstream at the moment, so we could have the scrap for third again between these two, but we'll wait and see as Hülkenberg rounds the first chicane on the track. Ricciardo still doing a good job up in third place at the moment, considering that GOM has definitely been struggling this season, but it seems this track either definitely suits their car or they finally turned a corner in their pace. We'll have to wait and see probably in Budapest to see if this pace was either a one-off or this is going to be actually some legit pace now for the remainder of the season, but they've just got to be able to maintain that if that is the case as they come out of the second chicane. And Hülkenberg though still trying to reel him in this battle for third place, and as you can see they will now approach the bus stop chicane. Round the left, right and left-hander we will go as they head down this long straight towards the right-hander, and a few more cars just going into the chicane themselves, and I'll be very interested to see what the gap is like between third and fourth in just a little bit. Meantime, the top two still having a lonely race at this stage, pretty much having a quiet time out in front. As meantime, Brendon trying to close in onto Giovinazzi, but he's not close enough yet to pull a pass on him as they now negotiate round the left-hander, as Brendon uses a little bit of curb on the outside. Round the final few turns we go into the second to last corner, and up towards the final corner then will go Stoffel Brendon as he heads down the pit straight, and across the line will go Brendon. In fact, I want to see what the gap is like between Hülkenberg and Ricciardo. Hülkenberg takes another 10th out of him, so it's now down to 0.8 seconds. So that's how that looks. As meantime, Brendon is 1.4 seconds back from Giovinazzi and 1.4 in front of Grosjean. So very consistent gaps between the two Bud Light Limes. Brendon has found himself in, as he still finds himself in this Bud Light Lime sandwich. But Brendon having a good race so far, it must be said, up in 7th place, looking to add to AMP's points account as they look to try and reel into Monster to try and reel in a bit more onto, well, in fact, try and increase their lead in their battle for 6th place in the Constructors' Championship with Monster and Martini and even Shadow not far behind them at this stage, but well, now they're feeling very confident about himself now that the car seems to be in an area now where it can score some consistent points finishes now as Brendon continues to close in onto Grosjean in front. Meantime, let's check up on this battle for 3rd between Ricciardo and Hülkenberg as they now come out of the bus stop chicane, heading down this straight. Hülkenberg doing the job as he tries to reel in on Ricciardo in front of him at this stage, and around about a few laps I would expect the pit stops to get underway here at Hockenheim as Hülkenberg now then rounds the right-hander onto the stadium section as he will now approach the left-handed hairpin and coming out of the corner, heading through towards the last few turns on the track. And let's see what the gap is like this time around between Ricciardo and Hülkenberg as Hülkenberg tries to chase him down for the final podium place. Hamilton continuing to drop back from their battle. So they come up now towards turn 1, 35 laps remaining in this German Grand Prix. Coming out of turn 1, and the gap between Ricciardo and Hülkenberg is down to 0.7 seconds, so another tenth. Hülkenberg has taken out of Ricciardo's lead that time by as he tries to get a touch, trying to get a sniff of the Honey Badger's slipstream. As now coming up towards the first chicane we go, the top two continuing to break away. Verstappen still continuing to have a lead out in front. And, well, you have to question whether Martini has the pace to win round here, it must be said, and get their first ever legit victory in this car, now that they have a legal car that they can work with. And now Verstappen will approach that bus stop chicane as Alonso tries to hunt down Verstappen at this stage of the Grand Prix as they round the bus stop. And but Alonso looking good to cut the gap between himself and Hamilton in the Drivers' Championship anyway, even if he doesn't grab the victory here today. Hülkenberg now then up towards the bus stop go Ricciardo and Hülkenberg as they negotiate round the chicane. Out the corner, heading down the straight now then we go before approaching the right-hander. And as you can see, Hülkenberg still not within slipstream range at this stage as Brendon continues to close in onto Giovinazzi in front. Meantime, Vettel is on the back of Leclerc and he's going to look to the inside of Leclerc. Will he get the move done on the shadow? And yes, he can. Vettel up into 13th place, getting the move done on Leclerc. And 13th place is the Germans. As now, meantime, Button on the inside of Dixon. And he takes the place with ease. So up to 17th goes Jenson Button. As he will now try, as Magnussen tries to chase down Jones for 15th place in the other Mars. So Button making his way up through the field now then. Meantime, the gap between Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, let's see how that stands, down to 0.5 seconds, so half a second now between them. Hülkenberg took 2 tenths out of him that time around on that lap, and he's getting closer in the slipstream now of Ricciardo as he looks to challenge him for that final podium place. Up towards the first chicane we go on the track. Through we go then, round the right, left and right-hander we go. And Hülkenberg, can he get the move done on Ricciardo? He doesn't seem to be close enough down this long straight to make an attack on him, as they will now come up towards this second sector. And Hülkenberg now then in the slipstream of Ricciardo, and but he needs to try and break that a little bit later to see if he can get a run on him onto one particular straight as they come out of the second chicane. Out of the corner now then we go before heading down the third long straight. Will Hülkenberg get the slipstream on Ricciardo? He looks like again he's a little bit too far back to challenge at this stage of the Grand Prix, as they will now approach the bus stop. Around the left, right and left-hander we will go. And now heading down this straight now then before approaching the right-hander. And let's see if Hülkenberg can try and get the move done on Ricciardo. And again, a little bit too far back to challenge this time by, as they exit out of the right-hander before approaching the next left-hander on the track. Coming out of the corner, and Hülkenberg now within the gearbox of Daniel Ricciardo, as he looks to try and grab third place from the Aussie. Around the final 2 turns we go. Hülkenberg rounds the final corner and onto the pit straight we go. And will Hülkenberg try and get the run on Ricciardo down towards turn 1 now then? He's in the slipstream. Ricciardo, though, doesn't think about defending it. And they maintain their positions out of turn 1. But can Hülkenberg get the run on him down this long straight? Hülkenberg in the slipstream of Ricciardo. He's in the slipstream now, then he's going to look to the inside. Will Hülkenberg get the move done on Daniel Ricciardo? Doesn't seem to have enough momentum. Will have to tuck back in his slipstream to try and get that move done. Hülkenberg now then, again in the slipstream, tries to dive it down the inside into the first chicane. Can he get late on the brakes? No, Ricciardo shuts the door on him there into the first chicane to keep hold of third at the moment in this Grand Prix. And he loses a little bit of time and now doesn't have the slipstream on him down this second long straight. Ricciardo doing a good job defensively to keep him back at the moment. As we ride on board with Nico Hülkenberg as he will now approach the second chicane. Hamilton trying to close back in onto this battle now then as he rounds the section of corners. Coming down the straight, and Hamilton doing a good job in 5th place for the moment. Here's Verstappen, and I would think in around about a lap or two, judging by the amount of fuel he's got left. He's got 2.8 litres in the tank left. I wouldn't be surprised if we'd be starting to pit very soon as he rounds the left-hander. Coming out of the corner now then. And here is Alonso, and he'll be staying out for a few more laps after Verstappen. But let's see, will Hülkenberg be pitting at the end of this lap then? At the end of lap 14? Let's see, as he heads down the pit straight. Let's have a look on the bottom right. And he's not. He's going to be staying out for another lap. And so that's that for him really. Meantime, back to this battle for third between Ricciardo and Hülkenberg. Hamilton within touching distance still of this scrap as they come out of the final corner and onto the pit straight. Hülkenberg, will he get the run on Ricciardo this time by down towards turn 1 on the track now then? As he exits out of turn 1, using a little bit of tarmac on the outside. Will Hülkenberg get the slipstream on Ricciardo at this point now? Then down the straight we go before approaching the first chicane. And again, it doesn't look like Hülkenberg's close enough to make an attack. We've just passed the 5 o'clock mark in this race, so we've only just passed it now then. Up towards the first chicane, round the right, left and right, and there we go. And again, looks like Hülkenberg looked like to have better traction, but still not enough to get him within the slipstream of Ricciardo. And I wonder if at this stage he'll have to give up. Vettel looks like he's going to be pitting very soon. And in fact, is he in the pits now then? So no, in fact I think Vettel's pitting at the end of this lap. He's up in 13th. Yes, so Vettel will be pitting in front of his home fans. And I think it said that Brendon was pitting. Yes, Brendon's pitting at the end of this lap in the hopes of trying to jump Giovinazzi into the pits. So the first round of stops are getting underway at the end of this lap then on lap 14. So Verstappen rounds the right-hander as he continues to lead the way out in front at the moment. And now up towards the left-handed hairpin will go the Dutchman. As he just misses the curb on the outside round the final few turns. Let's see if Verstappen will be pitting at the end of this lap now then as he rounds the final corner. And onto the pit straight he will go. And Verstappen now then, let's see, is he pitting at the end of this lap? And yes he is. Verstappen will be pitting for his first stop. And meantime, where is Brendon? There he is, he's pitting at the end of this lap now then. As he rounds these final few turns up towards the second to last corner. As Brendon parks it into the pits now then, and there you go then, into the pits comes Stoffel Brendon from 7th place as he rounds the bus stop chicane, and into the pit lane he goes. And let's see how quick the stop's going to be for Brendon. And it looks like the Mars Grand Prix mechanics are waiting for someone, or is that the Shadow Mechanics? I think that's actually Shadow Mechanics are waiting for someone, so I would think it'd probably be Carlos Sainz Jr. who was up in 10th before the pit stops. Brendon being served, and that does look like Sainz. It's got yellow on the helmet, so I think that is Sainz in the pits. It's a 10.5 second stop as Vettel is into the pits for EMR. So Vettel in, and is that Sainz in the pits? Yes, it is Carlos Sainz Jr. in the pits. Where is Brendon going to rejoin as he comes out of pit lane? And he's going to rejoin in 13th position. That's where Brendon's going to rejoin in front of Jones and Button. Button has got Dixon as a little earlier on in the race as Sainz rejoins in 17th position. Vettel, meantime, rejoins 18th on the road. So he's effectively last as they finished off the pit stops. Meantime, race leader Verstappen is pitting at the end of this lap, as we just mentioned. Alonso will take the lead temporarily in this race and will stay out for about a few more laps before he has to pit. So as he comes out of the hairpin, Verstappen now then peels to the right, and into the pits comes race leader Max Verstappen as he would put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel as he rounds that bus stop. And into pit lane he goes. And where is Verstappen going to rejoin now then, as he will put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. And let's see where Verstappen can rejoin now then. It's a quick wipe of the visor there then for Verstappen. And let's see where he's going to rejoin then. It's a 10.2 second stop for Max Verstappen, as he will go trundling down pit lane. And where is he going to rejoin now then, as he flicks off the pit limiter? And he's going to rejoin in 9th place behind Pascal Wehrlein, who's chasing down Hartley for 7th, or temporary 7th place. I think that will be for P9 once everybody finishes the stop. So Verstappen rejoins in front of Räikkönen, who's still trying to make his way up through the field. And so for now, Alonso leads temporarily for a few laps, of course. Hülkenberg and Ricciardo not scheduled to pit for another few laps, same with Hamilton. And just looking if anybody else will be pitting on this lap. It doesn't appear like it, so we're taking a little break in terms of pit stops. But judging from the fuel that they've taken onto the car, it looks like it is going to be a 2-stop race. So so no 1 stops, it appears. So I think everybody's chosen to go onto the 2-stop in this Grand Prix. I think I might be wrong, but we'll wait and see on that. As meantime, Hülkenberg's still stuck behind Ricciardo's GRM. Maybe this will probably turn into a battle in the pits, but we'll have to wait and see on that. As now Hülkenberg is going to come around the right-hander, which will take him onto the stadium section. And as you can see, you can just tell the difference of how close Ricciardo is to Nico Hülkenberg at this stage of the race. As round the final few corners then we go, and we'll have a look and see what the gap is like between Ricciardo and Hülkenberg this time by, as they round the final corner. Alonso started lap 17 of 45, so including this lap, we now have 29 laps remaining in this German Grand Prix. So now round turn 1 we go. Let's see if Hülkenberg can try and get Ricciardo for 2nd place now. Then he's in the slipstream of the Australian now. Then he tucks up into his slipstream. Will he try and get the place into the chicane now? Then he tucks up. Is he going to look to the inside? He's going to look to the inside. Will Hülkenberg get the move done on Ricciardo into the first chicane? Down the inside, he's trying to dive it, but again, Ricciardo shutting the door and keeps hold of 2nd place for the moment in this race. And again, Hülkenberg loses some more momentum. Hamilton unable to capitalise at that point. As meantime, Verstappen trying to chase down everybody else after he made his pit stop. So that's that for him really, as far as he's concerned. As meantime, here's Alonso, and I wouldn't be surprised if he makes a pit stop next lap or the lap after. We'll wait and see as he rounds out of the bus stop chicane, and down this straight we will go, and up towards the right-hander will go Fernando Alonso. And I think I made a little maths error a little earlier on. If he finishes 2nd and Hamilton 5th, the gap will actually come down to 18 points, not 19. I do apologise. It'll be down to 18 points if they remain 2nd and 3rd by the end of the race. But we'll wait and see as Alonso comes around the final 2 corners. Let's see, is he pitting at the end of next lap, which will be lap 18. Let's have a look now then as he heads down the pit straight. Across the line he goes, and he is. So Fernando Alonso is pitting at the end of this lap on lap 18 of 45 in this Grand Prix, as he now heads down this long straight towards the first chicane. And Alonso continuing to lead the way at this stage now then. As you can see, Hülkenberg trying to get hold of Ricciardo. The gap between these two now and then, let's have a look, is 0.7 seconds. So at this stage, once Alonso pits, Ricciardo will take the lead temporarily in the Grand Prix, as Alonso will now approach the 2nd chicane on the track. And let's see now then what Fernando Alonso can do. And as he comes out of the 2nd chicane, out of the corner now then they go before approaching the bus stop. And Alonso now then coming up now towards the bus stop. Out of the chicane he will go before approaching the straight. And now down the straight we go now then towards the right-hander. And out of the right-hander we go before approaching the next few corners on the track. Around the left-hander he goes, and he will come around the final few turns, and Alonso will peel into the pits, which he does now then. So into the pits comes Fernando Alonso from the lead of the Grand Prix, as he will now round the bus stop chicane. And coming out of the chicane, then we will go. As he will put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. And let's see what Alonso can do then after this pit stop. And let's see now then. And let's see how quick it will be. Ricciardo takes the lead temporarily. As where is Verstappen? He's coming down the pit straight, so he will retake that place back off Alonso. Alonso now then trundling down pit lane. He's actually fueling to the end of the race. So unlike Verstappen, Alonso's actually on the one stop. So unless though he doesn't have enough fuel to get to the end of the race and has to pit towards the end, then I believe that Alonso will be on the one stop. We will wait and see on that as Alonso rejoins in 10th in front of Charles Leclerc. So that's where he rejoins. And meantime, Vettel on the back of that train. Meantime, Ricciardo leads temporarily. And but as you can see, Hülkenberg is actually pitting this lap. So Ricciardo is actually choosing to stay out for either 1 or 2 more laps. So Hülkenberg pitting at the end of this lap then for fuel and tyres. And hoping to try and leapfrog Ricciardo in the pits if he can. As he head down this long straight towards the bus stop chicane. I would presume he's also on the same strategy as Alonso. Probably trying to go for the one stop. Or maybe pit towards the end of the race if he doesn't have enough fuel. But we'll wait and see. As he will now approach the bus stop chicane. Out the corner he goes before heading down this long straight towards the right-hander. So towards the straight now then we will go. And Hülkenberg heads down this straight towards the right-hander we go. And we will see him peel into the pits very soon. You can tell how close he was before the pit stop. He was behind Ricciardo. Hamilton still within touching distance of these two at this stage of the race as they come out of the right-hander. Sorry, out of the left-hander through the last 4 corners on the track now then. And in towards the final 2 corners we go then. And into the pits comes Nico Hülkenberg from 2nd place. As he will now come up towards the bus stop. Around the bus stop chicane then goes Hülkenberg as the mechanics get ready to serve him. As he will pull on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. Let's see where he's going to rejoin. It looks like the Suomi mechanics are getting ready for someone. So it's either Räikkönen or Magnussen that will make the pit stop. And so let's see then. And in fact, Verline is into the pits. I think that's Verline. It could be Brendon. No, I think it's Verline because Brendon pitted a little earlier. As it is a 14.6 second stop. So of course Hülkenberg fueled very heavily as Räikkönen and Verline are in for their scheduled stops. Where is Hülkenberg going to rejoin? As he goes trundling down pit lane, he'll soon flick off the pit limiter. And he's going to rejoin in 10th place just behind Magnussen, who's pitting at the end of this lap. Then in fact he's going to rejoin just behind Brendon. In fact, Brendon has leapfrogged Hülkenberg into the pits, but let's not forget Brendon is on the 2 stop. Hülkenberg looking to try and go to the end of the race then. So Brendon has actually leapfrogged Hülkenberg in the pits. He must have had an insane lap because he was nowhere near him at the time. So Brendon's managed to get the jump on him as a result. So brilliant stuff from Brendon, it must be said. Meantime now then, here is Ricciardo. He's pitting at the end of this lap. Hamilton will stay out for a couple of more laps, so he'll take the lead temporarily in this German Grand Prix. As they will now come up towards the right-hander. Ricciardo just going into the stadium section now then. So we're on lap 20 of 45. 26 laps to go in this German Grand Prix. As Ricciardo rounds the final few turns. Up towards the second to last corner. As he will peel right into the pits. So into the pits then comes Daniel Ricciardo from the temporary lead of the race. And the lead temporarily to Lewis Hamilton. And he'll be staying out for about 1 or 2 more laps before he makes his pit stop. And so the GOM mechanics getting ready for Ricciardo. Now this is crucial. Can Hülkenberg jump him? As out goes Romain Grosjean. Romain Grosjean is out of the race. And there he was. There he is. It is a transmission problem for Grosjean. So out of the race goes Romain Grosjean. And we're down to 17 runners in this Grand Prix. Transmission problems take care of the Frenchman. And that's his race done with. So no points for Grosjean in this Grand Prix. Let's see where Ricciardo can rejoin. Where is Hülkenberg on the track? Alonso goes back past him at this stage. So no worries for him there then. Where is Hülkenberg? Hülkenberg's coming around the final few turns. And Ricciardo finished his pit stop. So it's like Hülkenberg actually lost a lot of time in the pits. And well, that's pretty much that then really. Ricciardo's still going to be out in front of Hülkenberg as a result. And in front of Brendon. So Hülkenberg loses a lot of time in the pits. And Ricciardo still in front at this stage. But in fact, Brendon trying to have a look. But Ricciardo covers him off. Brendon looking to the inside. Brendon tucks back up behind him now then. Brendon with lighter fuel and looking to do the two-stop on the backside of Ricciardo now then, as Magnussen's in for his pit stop. Looks to the outside. Ricciardo defends the inside and keeps hold of that place going into the first chicane. And, well, that's that for him really now then. It's Verstappen comes up behind Hartley, the man that replaced him at Monza for this season, while Verstappen went to Martini. So that's that really. Hamilton leads temporarily, and he looks like he's going to be staying out for at least a 11 lap. Might be even another one on top of that. We'll wait and see. As Dixon's in for Mars Grand Prix. So he makes his pit stop in this race as they come out of the hairpin. Around the final two turns, around the final few turns then goes Lewis Hamilton. Coming out the final two corners then goes Lewis Hamilton. And let's see if he's going to be pitting at the end of lap 22 as we're near the halfway stage of the race. And yes, he is. Lewis Hamilton will be pitting at the end of this lap. And when he gets around halfway around the track, we will have reached the halfway point of this German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. As Hamilton comes out of turn 1 now then, approaching the first chicane on the track. As meantime, look how close Verstappen is now, right onto the gearbox of Brendon Hartley as they come down this straight now then. Hartley still yet to make a stop. In fact, Hartley's pitting at the edge of this lap, but that's not going to face Verstappen as he looks to the inside of Brendon Hartley. Will he get the move done on the keyway? He didn't have enough momentum. Hartley shut the door on him there. And will he try and dive it down the inside into the first chicane? He's going to look to the inside, trying to break that a little bit later, but unable to make the pass. Hartley closes the door, and Verstappen runs out of momentum and has to stay behind him. It's holding him up a little bit because it could allow Alonso to close up and try and make his, what we believe, his one-stop strategy work, or either it is a two-stop, but pitting to the end of the race, maybe making his strategy work out to perfection, as Verstappen continuously getting held up by Brendon Hartley in the monster car as they come out of the chicane before heading down towards the bus stop on the track. And now up towards that bus stop chicane we will go. And Verstappen still trying everything he can to get on terms with Hartley in this Grand Prix as they come down the straight towards the right-hander. And as you can see, there's Alonso in the background. You can just see they're trying to get up close to Verstappen by the end of the race as they come around the right-hander. And coming out of the corner using a lot of tarmac on the right-hand side there before going around these final few turns. As now coming around the final 4 corners and through towards the final 2 turns then goes Verstappen as Hartley peels into the pits. As Hamilton is in for his scheduled stop then, handing the lead temporarily to Antonio Giovinazzi in the Bud Light line. Let's see where Hamilton is going to rejoin then after his stop. He's also trying the same strategy as Alonso, as Hartley in for his stop in the monster car. And let's see where Hamilton will rejoin then. And there's through goes Alonso. Wasn't even a worry for him anyway. Here comes Hamilton trailing down pit lane. Leclerc will go by, but he's still yet to make a stop, I think, in this race. Yes, he is. Still got a few more laps left to burn. And Hamilton has actually got the jump on Ricciardo because, in fact, unseen by the cameras, Brendon has passed Ricciardo up into 6th place, and Hamilton's also got the jump on Ricciardo and Hülkenberg, so he will get up to what will be a provisional 3rd place in this Grand Prix, unless people jump him in the pits, like Giovinazzi, who stayed out for quite a while. He was, in fact, behind Hamilton before he made his stop. Jenson Button pits for his scheduled stop in the El Dorado, so Jenson Button into the pits. As Giovinazzi rounds the corner, and out goes Sebastian Vettel. Sebastian Vettel is out of the Grand Prix. What's happened to the German? Whereabouts is he on the track? And there he is. He's crashed at turn 1. He smacked it into the wall at turn 1. Sebastian Vettel is out of his home race, and we're down to 16 runners in this Grand Prix. Vettel bends it down at turn 1. Let's see. And yeah, locks up, carries a bit too much speed, and Vettel smacks it into the wall. And that's his German Grand Prix over with. And the fans probably left in disgust with that. At least Verlaine and Hülkenberg still in the race, but that's one less German for the German fans to cheer at this Grand Prix. So Vettel out, and we're down to 16 runners in this Grand Prix now then. As approaching the right-hander now then goes Antonio Giovinazzi. He's staying out for about 1 or 2 more laps because he's yet to make a stop. And in fact, he's running quite a similar fuel load to what Verstappen is at the moment. He's only running about 4 litres less than Verstappen. So Giovinazzi could even be a threat to Verstappen if this is the case. But we will wait and see on that as he rounds the final few turns. as Giovinazzi tries to get his slipstream, tries to get his strategy to work in hopes of possibly trying to get his second German Grand Prix victory, back-to-back German Grand Prix victories, but we will wait and see if he's lucky enough to do that, as he came out of turn 1 and he is staying out for about another lap and probably another one on top of that, and maybe even another one on top of that. So Giovinazzi staying out for quite a while, as it's 8.9 seconds between Giovinazzi and Verstappen at this stage of the Grand Prix. There's Alonso in third, looking quite comfortable where he is at this stage. As meantime, Leclerc still yet to make a stop. He could also look strong for some points, considering he's also running a bit of a similar strategy to what Giovinazzi is in front. But we'll wait and see what the Shadow Driver can do after he had a qualifying ban which saw him at the back of the pack. It would be a good comeback if it were the case for Charles Leclerc, as he will now approach the first chicane. And so that's that for him, really. It's look at Vandoorne now. He's absolutely flying on the track, as he's now starting to close in onto championship leader Lewis Hamilton. Vandoorne on a charge in this Grand Prix and has some great paces. We've got a yellow flag, and that's Leclerc. Leclerc has made a mistake into the first chicane. He's locked up, clipped the curb, and has gone straight on into the gravel. A similar mistake to what we saw from, I think it was it a Bud Light Lime last season? Probably Grosjean, I can't remember. But somebody made a similar mistake there last season, and Leclerc has just joined them as a result. And Leclerc, can he get it going, or has he beached into the ground and cost himself a chance of getting Shadow some points in this race? And, well, that's that really, as Leclerc trying to get the car going, but I believe Leclerc might have beached it. In fact, he's crawling out a little bit, might have found reverse gear. But we will wait and see as he tries to get the car going. He does. He's found reverse gear. But he needs to be quick before the car gets beached anymore. And he's having to wait for some more cars to go by yet again. So a disaster really for Charles Leclerc, as he waits for everyone to go by, which he does. He's able to get into reverse and able to get going again. If he can, though, of course. And there he goes then. He rejoins down in 15th place. So Giovinazzi still leads the race, and he'll be staying out for another lap at this stage. But meantime, I want to see what the gap is like between Vandoorne and Hamilton, as it's now a battle for 4th place. As they come out of the final corner, onto the pit straight they go. And let's see the gap between Vandoorne and Hamilton, as they will come up now towards turn 1. Out of turn 1 we go. And let's see now then as well, on lap 25 of 45, 21 laps to go in this German Grand Prix. 1.6 seconds is the gap between Hamilton and Vandoorne in this Grand Prix, as Hülkenberg now trying to rekindle his battle with Ricciardo as they go down this long straight now. Then sparks continuing to fly at the back of Ricciardo's GRM, as they will now approach the first chicane on the track. So into that chicane we will go. And so, as you can see, Hülkenberg trying everything he can to get on turns with Daniel Ricciardo in this Grand Prix, and trying to regain 6th place from the Aussie if he can. So, anyway, as you can see, Giovinazzi still out there. Let's see if he's going to be pitting at the end of the next lap, because he isn't pitting at the end of this lap according to his dial on the bottom right of his cockpit. So, let's see now then as he rounds the final 2 turns. And let's see, is Giovinazzi pitting at the end of next lap then? He's got to be. Look at the amount of fuel he's got left in the tank. And yes, he is. Giovinazzi will be pitting at the end of this lap on lap 26 of 45. 20 laps to go in this German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. And the 2 stoppers like Verstappen still yet to make the 2nd stop of the afternoon, which could prove decisive or costly. We'll have to wait and see. And Giovinazzi now then rounds the first chicane, as he goes around the section of corners on the track, out the corner, heading down this long straight towards the 2nd chicane. And Giovinazzi continuing to lead the way at this stage of the Grand Prix. Up towards the 2nd chicane we will go. And now into the chicane then goes Giovinazzi, as he continues to lead, but he will be pitting at the end of this lap as mentioned. There's Verstappen, as he now comes up towards the 2nd chicane himself. Meantime, Hamilton, though, trying to close in onto Alonso, so Hamilton could even start to close in as well, as Vandoorne, well, I say that, of course, he's still a little bit behind, but Vandoorne still keeping within touching distance of Lewis Hamilton in this Grand Prix, as he goes down this long straight, as Jones is into the pits. I think he's the first to make a 2nd stop in the Grand Prix so Jones is in for his scheduled stop, and he's now fueled to the end of the race, hopefully, unless he'll not have enough fuel to get to the end, but we will wait and see. As Leclerc now pits for his scheduled stop, and we'll be seeing Giovinazzi come in for his one and only stop of the afternoon. As he comes out of the corner now, then round the right-hander and into the pits comes Antonio Giovinazzi from the lead. So let's see where he will rejoin then after the pit stop as he rounds the chicane. There are the Bud Light Line Motorsport mechanics getting ready for him. As he will put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel. Verstappen goes back through into the lead, but he will be pitting in a few laps' time for his second stop. And let's see where Gio will rejoin then. I think Alonso will actually go through as well. And yes, he will. 12.5 seconds through will go Hamilton in a little bit as he rounds the final turn. But can Giovinazzi perhaps get out in front of Brendon? They were battling before the pit stop. But let's see then where Gio's going to come out then. As he will flick off the pit limiter. There's Hamilton. Where's Brendon? Brendon's near turn 1. It's going to be close between the pair of them. But I think Brendon's actually jumped him in the pits. So Brendon gets in front of Giovinazzi. And up into 4th place goes Stoffel Brendon. As meantime now Hülkenberg losing a bit of time now to Daniel Ricciardo in their fight for what is now 6th place in this race. There's an engine blow for Charles Leclerc. Leclerc's got an engine failure. And it looks like he's going to be pulling off at the exit of the first chicane. And, well, engine failure takes care of Charles Leclerc's race as he pulls off to the side of the track. Charles Leclerc is going to be out of the Grand Prix and will be down to 15 runners in this Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. So that's the end of the race then for Charles Leclerc as he pulls off to the side of the track. And, well, that's that for him really. Leclerc out and we're down to 15 runners as a result. So his race is done with as a result as he just hoists over the barrier. So there you have it then. As there is Verline now then trying to close down onto Räikkönen. In fact, Räikkönen's getting close to Sainz in their battle for 9th. Sainz at the same time trying to get up close to Hartley to try and get himself into the points. And so that's that for him here. Here is Max Verstappen. And let's see what his fuel earned. In fact, Verstappen is pitting at the end of this lap then. So Verstappen will be pitting for his second and final stop this lap at the end of lap 28 of the Grand Prix. So that's when Verstappen is making his second stop as he comes down this long straight. And I think he will be handed the lead then to Fernando Alonso, who looks to be on the 1 stop. We'll have a look at his fuel a little bit to see if he's got a pit towards the end. But we will wait and see on that as Alonso comes down this long straight. As we're 2 minutes away now from the 5:30 mark. So we've been covering this race now for about an hour. So as Alonso now then comes up towards the next chicane. But he comes out of that first chicane now then on the track. Hamilton still quite a tad bit behind at this stage as Giovinazzi's now been left for dust. As Brendon, in fact, he's pitting at the end of this lap. So Brendon is on the 2 stop. So Giovinazzi will get back up into 4th place. Could be 3rd, all depending on where Verstappen rejoins after his second stop. Speaking of which, here is the teenage Dutchman as he rounds the bus stop chicane now, then heading down this straight towards the right-hander. And let's see where Verstappen is going to rejoin then after the pit stop as he will round the right-hander. Through the right-hander goes the teenage Dutchman. A lot of tarmac being used on the outside there then before he approaches the final few turns on the track. And let's see then. So around the final few corners then goes Max Verstappen as he will flick the car into the right, which he does. So into the pits comes Max Verstappen for the leader race. He will give the lead then to Fernando Alonso as a result. And it could even be an Etihad 1-2 at this stage. But it all depends on whether they need to pit towards the end of the race, which could bring Verstappen back in, unless this strategy can enable him to push, so he can close up onto the 2 Etihads by the end of the race. We'll wait and see, as now he's being served in the box. And through goes Alonso to take the lead of the German Grand Prix. So through into the lead then goes Fernando Alonso, the 3-time champion. And Verstappen finishes his stop. It's an 11-second stop. He's fueled to the end. As through goes Hamilton up into 2nd place. There is Giovinazzi who gets up to 3rd because Brendon is now into the pits. As Verstappen is going to rejoin in 4th place in front of Daniel Ricciardo. So that's where Verstappen is going to rejoin. He rejoins 4th behind Giovinazzi and in front of Daniel Ricciardo. Brendon pits. And let's see where he will rejoin then after the stop. As he will put on a fresh set of tyres and fuel now then. Sainz is in. Luckily for Brendon, he didn't even need to wait for him there. He was way beyond there before he had to maybe think about trying to wait for him there, as the rules state with the Grand Prix free system, of course. As Brendon rejoins in 10th place behind teammate Verline and in front of Kevin Magnussen. So he's outside the points now. Räikkönen into the points. And that could be where Brendon could be by the end of the race unless he starts to push. Meantime, now then, Verstappen in 4th on the same similar fuel load to the guys in front of him now then in this race. So Alonso now then leading the Grand Prix by a comfortable margin in front of Hamilton at this stage. The gap will be 20 points in the Drivers' Championship if it remains like this between Alonso and Hamilton. But we need to check their fuel, of course. Let's see. We'll add that up, of course. 39. We'll have to wait and see, of course. At the moment, it states that he will have enough, but we'll wait and see if that's going to be the case as the laps continue to count down in this German Grand Prix. Alonso rounds the final few turns to start lap 30 of 45 in this German Grand Prix. So we have 16 laps to go here at Hockenheim as Alonso comes up towards turn 1 now then on the track as he continues to lead the way at this stage. Here is Hamilton in 2nd. Giovinazzi looking strong on the podium in 3rd. Verstappen though, let's see what the gap is like between him and future teammate Giovinazzi as they come up now towards turn 1 of the track. 3.5 seconds is the gap between the Dutchman and the Italian, as it's 2 seconds between Verstappen and Ricciardo in this Grand Prix. As meantime now then, Brendon trying to close him onto his teammate as he looks to try and make the use of his strategy in the race as he rounds the final few turns on the track. The final 2 corners then, as he'll go onto the pit straight, will go Stoffel Brendon as he will now approach turn 1 on the track. As meantime, as you can see, Alonso still leading the way at this stage. So a reminder then of what the leaderboard looks like then as we are on lap 30 of the race. Alonso leads, Hamilton 2nd, Giovinazzi 3rd, Verstappen 4th, Ricciardo 5th, with Hülkenberg 6th, Hartley 7th, Räikkönen in 8th, Verline 9th, Brendon in 10th, Magnussen 11th, Button 12th, Sainz 13th, Jones 14th, Dixon 15th, and that's that really as far as they're concerned. 15 cars left in this race, and so I think this was the same amount of cars that were in. Excuse me, I had a little bit of a sneeze there. I was going to say this is the same amount of cars that finished last season as well, 15 cars. Whether they'll be able to keep it up towards the end, we'll wait and see as Alonso rounds the final turn to start lap 31 of 45 in this Grand Prix. 15 laps remaining for Fernando Alonso in this German Grand Prix as he rounds the first corner on the track. As here is Max Verstappen in the Martini. Let's see what the gap is like between him and Giovinazzi this time by. It was 3.5 seconds last time around, but let's see if Verstappen's able to close up a little bit more as they round turn 1 on the track. And the gap, let's have a look now then as they come out of turn 1. The gap is now 3.5 seconds, so they're both lapping around about the same pace as each other now then. So Giovinazzi responding to Verstappen's pace by equaling the amount of pace he's got at this stage of the Grand Prix. So we'll have to wait and see on that. Here is Alonso who comes up now towards the next chicane on the track. And he just comes out of that corner now then before approaching the bus stop chicane as the sparks continue to fly out the back of his car. And there is Hamilton currently in 2nd place. And there he is in the background. You just see him there from Fernando Alonso. As coming out the bus stop, there goes Fernando Alonso in this race as he comes down the straight towards the right-hander. And sparks continuing to fly out the back of Fernando's car as he will now approach the right-hander, using a little bit of tarmac on the left-hand side before approaching the final few turns. And so Alonso now then going around the final few corners now then as he will approach the final 2 turns, and he's now going to start lap 32 of 45 in this Grand Prix. 14 laps remaining here at Hockenheim as Alonso crossed the line to start that lap now. And let's see what the gap is like between Verstappen and Giovinazzi this time by. It was again 3.5 seconds last lap. Let's see if Verstappen's able to respond on this lap as he comes out of the final turn. Let's see now then as he crosses the line and the gap between Giovinazzi and Verstappen. Let's have a look as he round turn 1. The gap is now, let's have a look. Let's have a look at the gap when it comes up. Still 3.5 seconds, so they're both still lapping the same pace as each other. It must be said. So nobody's gaining, nobody's increasing within that gap. Giovinazzi keeping himself solid in 3rd place at the moment in this Grand Prix. So there is Kimi Räikkönen starting to chase down Hartley for 7th place. As meantime, what's the gap between Verline and Brendon, the 2 AMP teammates, as he round turn 1? And the gap between them is now 7.1 seconds. That's how the gap currently stands at this stage. As here is Alonso still leading the way as he rounds the bus stop. coming out of the corner now then before coming down the straight. Up towards the right-hander we go as the sparks continue to fly out the back of Alonso's car. And there is Giovinazzi in the background. And there is Alonso, because as he's a little bit of that tarmac on the left-hand side there then. Alonso continuing to lead the way at this stage. Sorry about that, as Alonso continues to lead the way by how much in front of Hamilton? 7.2 seconds in front. Let's see if Verstappen's able to catch up the gap this time by. And let's see now then. As they come down the straight. And he has, but only by a tenth. It's down to 3.4 seconds at this stage. Let's see the gap between Brendon and Verline. As Räikkönen slowly but surely starts to go into Hartley. Out goes Carlos Sainz Jr. Carlos Sainz out of the race. What's happened to Sainz? And whereabouts was he on the track? And I think we might have missed him actually. So we'll try and get hold of Dixon and see if we can try and get hold of Sainz if we can. And but Carlos Sainz Jr. is out of the Grand Prix. And let's see if we can catch him there. And there he is. It is a transmission problem, I think that said, for Carlos Sainz Jr. So Carlos Sainz Jr. is out of the race and we're down to 14 runners in this Grand Prix. Both shallows pulling off the side of the track with two different mechanical problems. His transmission, Leclerc's engine failure. So, there he goes. Off goes Stoffel Vandoorne. Vandoorne is off the track at the second to last corner. And, well, that's that really as far as they're concerned. And, well, Vandoorne has gone off the track there at the second to last corner. And that's going to cost him a bit of time into that at that stage. There's 11.1 seconds now as a result. Verline able to get away a little bit more. So that's that really as far as they're concerned, as now Alonso gets close to lap Dixon in the Mars Grand Prix car as they come up now towards the right-hander. And as you see, a little bit of a lock-up there from Dixon, it must be said, to go around that right-hander as Alonso tries to put a lap on the keyway as they come out of the hairpin up towards the final few turns. And Dixon going to let him go around the S's. In fact, no, making Alonso's life a little difficult. He can't get held up too much, otherwise Hamilton might take full advantage of this now then as they come out of the final turn. And Alonso now then finally puts a lap on Scott Dixon. And there is Hamilton there then in the background. We're on lap 34 of 45 now then. 12 laps to go in this Grand Prix. And I question whether Alonso will actually have enough to get to the end, or whether he'll have to make a late-minute pit stop. Same with Hamilton, really, but we'll wait and see on that. We'll have to wait and see whether the Etihad will have to do that, as it's now down to 3 seconds between Giovinazzi and Verstappen. Verstappen taking 4 tenths out of Giovinazzi's lead there. So the gap coming down between between Giovinazzi and Verstappen as they will now approach the first chicane. Round the right, then the left, and then in towards the right-hander then goes Max Verstappen. So that's that for him as Hülkenberg continues to lose time to Daniel Ricciardo's GRM. And Räikkönen still not up close to the back of Hartley. The gap between Vandoorne and Verline, now a clean lap has come about, down to 10.6 seconds. So he's taken 5 tenths out of Verline's lead. So Vandoorne pushing hard there to try and hunt down Verline again in this Grand Prix as the sparks continue to fly at the back of Vandoorne's car. Button now then trying to get on terms with Magnussen in this Grand Prix. As meantime Hamilton trying to get up close to Dixon, who held up Alonso a little bit. And this could help out Hamilton in a way, try and close up to his teammate for the lead of this Grand Prix. Alonso rounds the left-hander before approaching the last few turns on the track. Alonso leading the way at this stage as he rounds the final 2 turns. And down the pit straight then goes Fernando Alonso. And he now starts lap 35 and 45, so 11 laps to go for Fernando Alonso in this Grand Prix. As meantime, back to this battle for third between Giovinazzi and Verstappen. Let's see the gap between these two this time by as they both come out of turn 1. And the gap is now down to 2.7 seconds. So Verstappen takes another 3/10 out of Giovinazzi's lead there, as it's down to 2.7 seconds. As let's see then the gap between Räikkönen and Hartley in their fight for 7th. Up towards the first corner we go. And let's see then what the gap is like this time by. There's a lot of tarmac being used on the outside. And it is 2 seconds between Räikkönen and Hartley. That's how the gap currently stands at this stage. There's Verline in 9th. And that's that for him really. There's Button in 12th place as he rounds the final few turns on the track. And around the final corner then goes Jenson Button as he'll head down the pit straight to try and chase down Magnussen if he can. Meantime now Hamilton putting a lap on Dixon. Dixon's Mars Grand Prix car. He puts a lap on him at the bus stop chicane. So there we go. Hamilton gets through there pretty nicely. Into that bus stop then goes Verstappen. So he comes out of that corner as he continues to try and chase down Giovinazzi for the final podium place in this Grand Prix. And let's see the gap. And we'll be able to see what the gap is like this time by between the pair of them as Verstappen rounds the right-hander back onto the stadium section. He will go now then on the track. As they round the left-hander now then. Around the final few turns on the track then go Verstappen as he looks to try and get Giovinazzi if he can. Into the last 2 corners then goes Max Verstappen as he'll head down the pit straight. And let's see the gap between Gio and Verstappen this time by with 10 laps remaining in this Grand Prix as they come round turn 1. And the gap, let's have a look. The gap is 2.4 seconds. So he's taken another 3/10 out of Giovinazzi's lead again. Gio's actually coming into some traffic, so that could help Verstappen a little bit. Try and close up a little bit more onto the young Italian if he is able to. And his future teammate, let's not forget. At the same time, Gio's actually getting close to Hamilton, so he could gain some more places. And if it comes to the case where the Etihads have to make a last-minute pit stop, which at this stage it's looking more likely that the Etihads will have to, judging from that amount of fuel they've got left in the tank, Giovinazzi could look good for the victory, and Hamilton also looking very tight with that fuel as well. But we'll wait and see on that. At this stage, it all depends on what strategy the Etihads have ran on. Whether they've gone for the late 2 stop or just gone for the 1 stop, we'll have to wait and see. As Alonso comes out of that bus stop chicane, as does Lewis Hamilton, as he continues to try and close in onto Alonso in front. And it's going to get very interesting, it must be said, on how this race ends. As Giovinazzi now puts a lap on Dixon. So he gets through on him there then. So now there's a car between himself and Verstappen. So Verstappen will have to lap Dixon if he wants to challenge Giovinazzi for 3rd place at the moment as they come out of the right-hander. As now through the left-hander there then goes Antonio Giovinazzi as he uses a little bit of curb on the outside before approaching these final few turns. In towards the final 2 corners then go Giovinazzi as he will go up towards the final corner, and onto the pit straight goes the Italian. And let's see the gap between Verstappen and Giovinazzi this time by 9 laps remaining in this German Grand Prix. Lap 37 of 45 we're now on as they round turn 1 on the track. And let's see the gap there. It's 2 seconds exactly between Giovinazzi and Verstappen. So Verstappen actually took 4 attempts out of him that time around. So 4 attempts Verstappen took out of Giovinazzi on that lap there then, as Ricciardo begins to pull away a bit more from Nico Hülkenberg in their fight for 5th place at this stage as they come down the straight towards the bus stop, towards the first chicane on the track. And there's Hülkenberg now then down that long straight. Räikkönen 1.8 seconds back from Hartley. So from the last time we checked, Räikkönen has taken 2 attempts out of Hartley's lead there. So he is starting to gain a little bit. Brendon, the gap between him and Verline as they come out of turn 1. The gap is 9 seconds between the pair of them. So that's how that stands. As coming down the straight then they will go. As Verstappen now then trying to hunt down Giovinazzi in front. As they will now approach the bus stop chicane. And Verstappen getting closer and closer to the back of Gio. He's actually now put a lap on Scott Dixon's Mars Grand Prix car. So that's that for him really, as they come down this long straight towards the right-hander. So up towards the right-hander then will go Max Verstappen, as he will come around this right-hander on the track. Out the corner using a little bit of that tarmac on the outside before approaching the left-hander. And Verstappen now then just comes out of the corner before approaching the final 4 turns. And let's see what the Martini can manage then this time by. And let's see what the gap is like between him and future teammate Giovinazzi. Out of the final corner and onto the pit straight. and the gap between Giovinazzi and Verstappen this time by as they come up towards turn 1. Let's have a look. Out of turn 1 we go, and the gap is now 1.8 seconds. So Verstappen takes another 2 tenths out of Gio's lead there then, as Gio is 2.5 seconds back from Lewis Hamilton in second place. So Gio looking to try and close down on Hamilton if he can, as they now approach the chicane. Around the right, left and right hander he will go, as he tries to hunt down Lewis Hamilton in front of him at the moment. And then they will approach the second chicane. So up towards the second chicane we will go on the track. So in towards the chicane we go, and Giovinazzi continuing to try and hold off Verstappen. Verstappen continuing to close that gap down on his future teammates. So we could have an interesting scrap for third at this stage. And Hülkenberg continuing to drop back from Daniel Ricciardo, who's looking good to get some more points for GRM if it stays like this. Räikkönen still trying to pile the pressure on Brendon Hartley for 7th place as they round the second chicane. And coming out of that chicane now, then we go before approaching the third of 4 long straights. And Räikkönen trying to get some more points onto the board if he can. As out goes Lewis Hamilton! The championship leader is out of the race! What has happened to Lewis Hamilton? Whereabouts is he on the track? There he is! Was it a crash down at the right-hander? And it was in Mika Häkkinen style. Similarly, Hamilton has smacked it into the wall. And Lewis Hamilton, the championship leader, is out of the race. And Verstappen back onto the podium. And it's going to lift, I think, who was in 9th at the time. It's going to lift Verlaine into the points. Lewis Hamilton, the championship leader, is out of the Grand Prix. And we're down to 13 runners. Which means if it stays like this, Alonso will cut the gap between himself and Hamilton to just 12 points. But that all depends if he's got enough fuel to get to the end, on whether he's got to make that last minute pit stop. Like we see in the past here at Hockenheim, and even in Sakir as well. He's got a 6.3 second lead in front of Giovinazzi, and need to look at the fuel to see if he'll have enough to get to the end. And at this rate, trying to work that out. Let's try to think. We've got 7 laps remaining in the Grand Prix. I don't think he'll have enough, so I think Alonso will have to make a late-minute pit stop, which could bring Giovinazzi into the lead of the Grand Prix. So that's that really, as he's got, I think, enough fuel to get to the end himself. Same with Verstappen, but Verstappen continued to close down because of that crash. We couldn't see what the gap was like between Verstappen and Gio that time by. So that's that really. The gap between Van Dorn and Verlaine for what will be the final points is now down to 8.6 seconds. So that's how that looks at this stage. And but Hamilton out of the Grand Prix, and we're down to what will be now 13 runners in this race. As Giovinazzi rounds the bus stop chicane. And out of the chicane they will go, and I'll be interested to see what the gap is like between Gio and Verstappen this time by, as they go down the long straight towards the right-hander. And through towards the right-hander, which will take him onto the stadium section where Lewis just had his crash a lap ago, using that little bit of tarmac on the outside before approaching the 5th to last corner. And coming out the corner now then before approaching the final 4 turns on the track. And out the corner we go now then. Let's see the gap between Verstappen and Giovinazzi this time by. And we've got 6 laps remaining in this German Grand Prix. We're on lap 40 of 45. 6 laps to go in the Grand Prix. Coming out of turn 1, let's see the gap between the pair then. 1.7 seconds is the gap. So from the last time we checked, Verstappen's only taken a 10th out of Giovinazzi that time by. So he hasn't really gained too much from the last time we checked. So that's that really, as they come down the straight towards the first chicane. And here is Alonso now then. And as you can see, I think, judging from that, Alonso is going to have to make a last minute pit stop at this stage of the Grand Prix. But we will wait and see on that. But I do believe Alonso will have to make a last minute pit stop, just judging from that amount of fuel he's got in that tank with 6 laps remaining in the Grand Prix. So because you've got to include that 40 in that equation as well, I think he will have to pit again. But we will wait and see anyway as we get to the closing stages of the Grand Prix. As meantime, back to this battle for second between Giovinazzi and Verstappen as they come out of the bus stop chicane now then. Verstappen looking to try and gain if Alonso has to come into the pit for a late-minute pit stop, then this right here is effectively the battle for the lead between Giovinazzi and Verstappen. So we'll have to wait and see if Alonso has to make a stop towards the end of the Grand Prix, as now Verstappen goes around the left-hander now then, using a tad bit of that curb on the outside before approaching the final 4 turns. And around the corners now then we go, before approaching the final turn on the track. And now heading down the pit straight now then, 5 laps to go in this German Grand Prix. The gap between Gio and Verstappen this time by, as we come out of turn 1, is now still 1.7 seconds. So they're both lapping around about the same pace as each other at the moment in this Grand Prix. And so meantime, that will be that then really, as Gio could look good if he's able to have enough fuel, which so far he looks like he will do. If it stays like this, he will get his 2nd consecutive German Grand Prix victory, because he won here last season, of course, let's not forget. And I think he was even in front of Verstappen in that season as well. So a little bit of a coincidence there, you'd have to say, if that were to be the case. But that's only if Alonso has to pit. And here is Brendon now then. The gap between him and Verlaine is 8.4 seconds. So that's how that looks. Räikkönen still not getting up close to the back of Hartley's gearbox in the monster car at this stage. And it looks like these two will have to make a late-minute pit stop as well, judging from the amount of fuel they've got left in the tank. I think a majority of people will have to at this stage, but we will wait and see. As here is Gio, who comes up now towards that right-hander. And they are getting up pretty close now to Fernando Alonso, as he comes out of that right-hander up towards the left-hander. We will go, and let's see now then, as he comes out of the corner and through towards the next few corners on the track. Then we go, as Alonso now then rounds the final turn, and down the pit straight we go now then. Alonso now then starts lap 42 of 45 in this Grand Prix. So that's that then really, and we need to see if Alonso will have enough to get to the end of the Grand Prix. And it's a bit tight, but we'll have to wait and see. Alonso comes down towards the first chicane. As you can see, Giovinazzi and Verstappen try and close him up, as Gio has again managed to keep the gap the same between himself and Verstappen to 1.7 seconds. So that's that at this stage, as they come out of the chicane and up towards the second chicane on the track. And so that's that really as far as they're concerned, as Hülkenberg continues to drop back from Ricciardo in their fight for 4th in the Grand Prix. And meantime, Brendon, what's the gap between him and Verlaine? 8.2 seconds, so he's gained another 2/10 on his teammate. But at this stage, I think it'll be too late. I think Verlaine will do enough to hold on to that final points place. But we will wait and see as he comes down that straight. As here is Verstappen still trying to chase down Giovinazzi at this stage of the race, as they come out of the bus stop chicane and up towards the right-hander we will go. And up towards this next right-hander we will go now then, as he will come out of the right-hander in towards the hairpin, using that little bit of tarmac on the outside, down towards the left-hander on the track. And coming out these final few turns then we go. And coming down the pit straight then goes Alonso, as he has 3 more laps to go in this Grand Prix. And so he's got 3 laps to go in the Grand Prix, but will he have enough to get to the end of the Grand Prix with this amount of fuel he's got in the tank? And we'll have to, as mentioned, wait and see when we get onto the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix, whether Alonso will be able to take this amount of fuel and actually try and get his first German Grand Prix victory, and finally end the bad luck Etihad has had around this Hockenheim circuit. And he comes down the straight now then towards the second chicane. And up towards that second chicane then goes Fernando Alonso, as he flicks the car in through the section of corners, as he continues to lead at this stage from Giovinazzi, Verstappen, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Hartley, Räikkönen, Verlaine, Brendon, Magnussen, Button. And 12th is Ed Jones, with Scott Dixon in 13th position. They're the 13 runners left in this Grand Prix. Alonso rounds the bus stop chicane on the track, as he comes out of that corner, heading down the straight now then towards the right-hander. And Alonso now then continuing to lead the way, but it's just all a case of whether he's going to have enough to get to the end, as he rounds the right-hander now then on the track. And, well, we'll have to wait and see as he comes out of the final few turns now then on the track. And round the final few corners then goes Fernando Alonso as he will approach the final corner. Let's see, in fact, if he's got to pit, actually, at the end of this lap now. Then let's see. He crosses the line, and he doesn't have to. So it looks like Alonso might just have enough in the tank to get to the end. But we will have to wait and see on his fuel. It's going to be quite tight. But judging from that, I would think Alonso might have enough unless the system is miscalculated lap. But look how much the traffic has held up Giovinazzi, because the gap now between Giovinazzi and Verstappen is now down to 0.6 seconds. That's how that looks between the pair. Then both of them's got enough fuel to get to the end of the race. So they're okay as far as they're concerned. So they've got the podium in the bag anyway, unless they make a mistake somewhere on the track. As Verstappen now then in... pretty much now has Giovinazzi in his sights, his future teammate, as they go down this long straight for the penultimate time today now then. So meantime, Räikkönen still not close to Hartley, and it looks like he might have to settle for 7th place in the Grand Prix. And I think he'll have enough to get to the end. But it's all a question about Alonso, because look how tight his fuel is towards the end of the race. We'll have to wait and see how many litres he carries towards the end of the Grand Prix. Could this be a miscalculation from Etihad Racing, like we've seen in the past with Red Bull Audi with Joseph Newgarden 2 seasons ago? Well, we'll have to wait and see, as Alonso will now approach the right-hander on the track. And the sparks continue to fly out the back of Fernando's car. The 3-time champion's win might be under threat, but we'll wait and see as he will go around the left-hander on the track. Coming out of the final few turns then goes Fernando Alonso, as he will come up towards the final corner. Let's see the fuel. 1.1 litres. He comes around the final corner. He's down to 1 litre. He might just have enough. He might just have to squirt it across the line. Tippy toe across the line. But he might just have enough as Fernando Alonso starts his final lap of the Grand Prix. He has done a brilliant race as far as he's concerned. If he's able to have enough fuel, he would have made the one-stop work to perfection. He started on pole position but got the jump on the start at the start by Max Verstappen. He wasn't able to keep up with him before the first pit stop that Verstappen made, but at that point he was just trying to make sure they could get this one stop to work, and when Verstappen pit, he was in front. And at this stage, if he's got enough fuel to probably just crawl across the line, because I think he's got enough of a gap in front of Giovinazzi and Verstappen, at this stage, Alonso is looking good to get his 3rd victory of the season, his 2nd legit one, and he will bounce himself right back in the championship fight, with Hamilton crashing out, with the gap being down to 12 points in the Drivers' Championship, if he can just keep it on the road and have enough fuel to maybe just crawl it across the line, just like Mitch Evans did earlier on in GP2 at Sakhir in the sprint race. So we'll wait and see on that as Alonso comes down the straight towards the right-hander now then. Alonso just trying everything he can. 0.1 litres. That is very, 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 very tight. This could be under threat. Look how much fuel he's got. He's down to 0.0. Can he just get it towards these final few corners? This might not be enough. Alonso could lose the victory due to this amount of fuel as he comes around the final 2 turns. Has Alonso done enough? As he comes around the final corner, I think he will do. He might just crawl across the line, which he is doing. Where is Giovinazzi on the track? Alonso's crawling. Alonso is crawling. Will he get it to the end? There's Giovinazzi. This is going to be close. Who's going to win? It's Alonso. Fernando Alonso wins the German Grand Prix. Congratulations to him and the Etihad Racing team. That was so tight. But Alonso wins the Grand Prix. Giovinazzi finishes in 2nd. Verstappen 3rd. Ricciardo is going to cross the line in 4th. In the GRM, so it's 4th place for Daniel Ricciardo. Alonso just crawled it across the line to take his 3rd victory of the season and bounces himself right back in the championship. 5th place for Nico Hülkenberg, 13th for Dixon, 6th will go to Brendon Hartley. Kimi Räikkönen will cross the line in 7th. Pascal Wehrlein is going to cross the line in 8th place for him. It's going to be 9th place for Stoffel Vandoorne as he comes out of the final corner. So 9th place for Stoffel Vandoorne in the AMP. Here comes Kevin Magnussen as he comes around the final few turns. And coming around the final few corners then goes Kevin Magnussen as he will approach the final 2 turns. He will cross the line in 10th place in the Suomi now then. So 10th place for Kevin Magnussen. Jenson Button finishes in 11th. And there you have it then. In the end, Fernando Alonso is the winner after just crawling it across the line with no fuel. Alonso wins the Grand Prix, and it's his third victory of the season, and it bounces himself right back in the championship fight. So there you have it then, guys. After all of that, here is the result of the German Grand Prix. Fernando Alonso won the race with Antonio Giovinazzi in second. Max Verstappen finished in third with Daniel Ricciardo fourth. Nico Hülkenberg fifth. Brendan Hartley sixth. Kimi Räikkönen seventh. Pascal Wehrlein rounds out the points in eighth with Stoffel Vandoorne ninth. Kevin Magnussen 10th. Jenson Button in 11th with Ed Jones 12th. Scott Dixon 13th. Lewis Hamilton 14th. Sorry, Scott Dixon was the last to finish in 13th, and here comes the long list of retirements. The retirements of the race were Lewis Hamilton, and if we scroll down to the rest, Carlos Sainz Jr., Charles Leclerc, Sebastian Vettel, Romain Grosjean, Esteban Ocon, Jean-Eric Vergne, Valtteri Bottas, and Felipe Massa. They were the retirements of the German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. So let's see who set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix then. Let's have a look. And it was Max Verstappen with a 1 minute 36.839. He was 3/10 quicker than eventual race winner Fernando Alonso in the end. So there you have it then, guys. That has been it for the German Grand Prix here at Hockenheim. I hope you enjoyed it. It has been a very entertaining day of racing, and Alonso bounced himself back in the championship thanks to his victory. But there you have it then, guys. That has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. Just a few notes before we end. Of course, at 8 o'clock in just under 2 hours' time, round 8 of the Season 15 AOR Hype Energy F1 Leagues for the PS4 will be on. I'm hoping there'll be no issues on the stream. There was no lag on this stream, of course, so I'm feeling good on that chances, but I'm not holding my breath. I'm not holding my breath on that. We'll have to wait and see in just under 2 hours if it works, because it didn't work 2 weeks ago when I was back when I was commentating last. But there you have it then, guys. That has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. In terms of live streams, though, that is not it, because on Tuesday we have the announcement stream to announce some changes for the upcoming season for IFMC IndyCar, along with its calendar. And also in that live stream, the Season 5 IFMC calendar will be announced. So do tune in on Tuesday at 4 PM BST on Twitch for those announcements. And do check out AOR at 8 PM BST for round 8 at the Belgian Grand Prix for the Season 15 Championship. But until then, guys, that has been it. I hope you enjoyed it. The podium for the top class is coming your way just after this. But until then, we will see you then, guys, next weekend at the Hungarian Grand Prix in Budapest, which will be a new layout for what we've had before, because we will be using the present day layout of Budapest. I have found one that works, so we will be using the present day Budapest for this season. But until then, guys, that has been it. I hope you've enjoyed it. So thank you very much for watching. I've been JWF1, and I will see you guys either on Tuesday at 4 PM BST for the announcement, or next weekend at the Hungarian Grand Prix in Budapest for another packed weekend of IFMC. Until then, take care and enjoy the podium.